The cheers, the laughter, the camera phones all pointing at me, everything was perfect, or at least it should have been. I had spent weeks planning the baby's gender reveal party. Pink and blue balloons floated around the backyard, a cake with hidden frosting sat waiting on the table, and our families gathered together, buzzing with excitement. My hands rested on my growing belly, and for a moment, I let myself believe that this was the beginning of a beautiful chapter in my life. But then Daniel, my husband, walked toward me with an expression so cold it sent a shiver down my spine. He held an envelope in his hand, his jaw set like stone. I thought it was a card, something sweet, maybe even romantic for the occasion. But when I opened it, my heart dropped. They weren't words of love. They were divorce papers. Gasps filled the air. The laughter died instantly. My mother's face went pale, my friends looked away in shock, and I stood frozen, clutching the papers as though they were poisonous. Daniel cleared his throat. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice devoid of warmth, "but I can't do this anymore. I don't think we're meant to be together." His words cut through me like a blade. At our baby's gender reveal, surrounded by family, he had chosen this moment to publicly humiliate me. I felt betrayed, heartbroken, and stripped of every ounce of dignity. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Memories flashed through my mind. Our wedding vows, the nights we dreamed about building a family, the moment I told him I was pregnant and saw tears in his eyes. How had we come to this? Had it all been a lie? My voice trembled as I whispered, "Here. Now," but he just stood there, arms folded, as if he were waiting for me to crumble. The silence was suffocating. Everyone was staring, waiting for me to collapse or scream. And yet, something inside me shifted. Maybe it was the life growing within me, maybe it was pride, maybe it was survival, but instead of breaking down, I straightened my shoulders. I would not let him have the last word. I took a deep breath, held the divorce papers tightly, and walked to the center of the yard where the big balloon box stood, the one meant to reveal our baby's gender. My voice shook at first, but then it grew stronger. "Daniel," I said, "you think you've ended our story today. But you don't know everything." With that, I pulled the ribbon and the lid of the box flew open. Pink balloons rushed into the sky, floating above us like little clouds of hope. Everyone clapped instinctively, but the tension lingered. Then I held up another envelope, one I had hidden inside the box earlier. "I wanted this to be a surprise for all of you," I said, locking eyes with Daniel. "Today isn't just about finding out if we're having a boy or girl. I got news from my doctor 2 days ago. We're not having one baby, we're having twins." The yard erupted. My mother screamed with joy, my father covered his mouth in shock, and friends rushed toward me with hugs. But all eyes quickly darted back to Daniel. His face drained of color, his confidence shattered. He stepped back, stumbling over his words. "Twins. I didn't know. I thought." He looked lost, almost desperate, as though the ground had just slipped out from under him. The man who had handed me divorce papers moments ago now stood frozen, realizing the weight of what he had done. I met his gaze, my own tears spilling down my cheeks, not of sadness anymore, but of strength. "You wanted to leave me today, Daniel. You chose this moment, in front of everyone we love, to humiliate me. You thought I was weak. But I am stronger than you will ever know. These babies deserve a father who will fight for them, not run away. And I deserve a partner who loves me, not someone who throws me away." My voice cracked, but I stood tall. The crowd fell silent again, but this time the silence was powerful. It was the silence of truth sinking in, of people realizing what kind of man Daniel had become. My family surrounded me, their arms wrapping around me in protection and love. Daniel stood off to the side, pale and regretful, clutching the divorce papers like they were now burning in his hands. Later, he tried to apologize. He called, he showed up at the house, he begged me to reconsider. He said he had been scared of fatherhood, scared of our arguments, scared of not being enough. But the damage had been done. I had seen the truth in his actions. Fear might excuse mistakes, but it doesn't excuse cruelty. He had chosen the worst possible way to break me, and instead, he had revealed his own weakness. The weeks that followed weren't easy. Nights were long and lonely, mornings were heavy with exhaustion. But I wasn't alone. I had my family, my friends, and most importantly, my twins growing inside me. Every time I heard their little heartbeats at doctor's appointments, every time I felt their tiny kicks, I knew I had something worth fighting for. My children would never wonder if they were loved. They would grow up surrounded by strength, resilience, and unwavering devotion. And as the months passed, something beautiful happened. I rediscovered myself. I remembered the woman I was before the heartbreak. I found joy in preparing the nursery, hope in every ultrasound picture, and strength in every tear I shed. By the time my twins were born, two perfect little girls, I no longer felt abandoned. I felt chosen. Chosen by life to be their mother, chosen to stand tall even when others tried to break me. Daniel still regrets what he did, but that's no longer my burden to carry. I've learned that sometimes the greatest betrayals are also the greatest blessings. Because if he hadn't handed me those divorce papers, I might never have discovered just how strong I truly am. And now, as I cradle my daughters in my arms, I know one thing with absolute certainty: love doesn't always come from the people we expect. Sometimes, it comes from the tiny miracles we create, and the courage we find in ourselves when life tries to tear us apart.